to Lexi's Healthy Dynamic Life podcast. I'm your host, Lexi, and on today's episode, I'm so super excited to have the pleasure of interviewing Janace, also known as Raw for the Health of It on Instagram. Janace not only is a fabulous and amazing woman and raw foodist, she's also a university professor, a department chair. She's an author of many books, and it is such an honor and privilege to be having you here today, Janace. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yay! And so I would love to hear about your story on how you came to raw foods and why it is a hobby of yours and why you love to share that with others on Instagram.
Yes. Well, I used to be a sad diet eater and I had very high cholesterol. Worked out every day, don't drink, don't smoke, just pretty healthy lifestyle. And my cholesterol was almost 300 and didn't eat red meat, kept working with my doctors to try and get it under control. And high cholesterol runs in my family, as probably most Italians. And I really did not want to be put on medication. And my dad had a really successful journey on a vegetarian diet. So I thought, I am going to explore that. And he was able to significantly reduce his. And my dad was like me, did not want to be put on medication. And so just kind of experimenting with a vegetarian diet, but cheese, I don't know what else is in it, but that was the hardest thing for me to get rid of. It was cheese and the whole dairy thing was really difficult for me to finally move away from. And I was vegetarian for a couple years, and I did see that it reduced my cholesterol, but it was still pretty high. It was still higher than my doctor wanted it to be. And I was just growing tired of the let's do medication route. So I started doing a lot of research about food and cholesterol. And when I learned that if there's cholesterol in something, it's always from animal product, it's like the bell went off. And because my doctor, was telling me, oh, well, your body just produces a lot of cholesterol and this is just your best. This is the best for you. And I just could not accept that. And so I started exploring a vegan diet. And in that exploration, I discovered raw, and the rawtarian was kind of one of my first endeavors of experimenting with raw food. And I grew up, my grandfather had a huge garden, and I just remember my sister and I in the garden helping him harvest, and he had every kind of vegetable that you could think of. So it was natural for me to be eating lots of fruits and vegetables anyway. So I really kind of delved into raw, and I've been raw since 2014. And that's where it was the magic for my cholesterol. I mean, it still hovers just below 200, but I'm not on medication. And it's just been a really great journey. And once you go raw, it's like everything just kind of takes care of itself. It's like your weight just kind of seeks that ideal spot. And I've never had issues with acne or anything like that, but I know a lot of people going raw has really tremendously helped them. And my daughter has kind of watched my journey, and I just kind of let her do her thing. And she became vegetarian because she was really having trouble with just digesting meat, and was living off of Tylenol. And when I discovered that, I was like, no, it's not okay. And so excited. She is now vegan by her choice. So maybe eventually she'll dabble in raw. I mean, she loves to cook raw with me, but she's still like very hesitant. Like there's some things she's like inspired to try or want to cook, but others she's still a little hesitant with. But it's been amazing. I love experimenting with raw food and cooking things, and not necessarily to make it taste like regular standard American diet, but it's like raw tacos. It's really great. They don't taste like a regular taco, which some of that is just not even appealing to me anymore. But just that reminiscent of, flavor and just delving into spices in a very different way than I had when I, cooked normally. So lots more experimentation, and it's been really great. So now I consider myself kind of high raw. I eat mostly raw food. Occasionally I'll have some grains, but I smoothie, big salad, or raw meal. That's kind of my go-to. And I love raw soups, especially in the summer.
Yum. Thank you so much for sharing that. There's so many good points that you brought up. And you mentioned that you had high cholesterol and your doctor was recommending the path of taking medication to deal with that. And I think that's something that a lot of us can relate to. High cholesterol runs in my family. Most of my relatives choose to take medication, and I definitely resonated with what you said. I do not choose to accept that. I would look for a natural option any day. And it's so amazing that just by choosing different foods, you were able to achieve that result and lower your cholesterol significantly. And I'm wondering if you remember about how long it took for you to achieve that result.
It was probably, I would say, about 2 years. And it may have been 2 years because I took a year off because I was tired of from my physical that year, tired of hearing, hey, you need to do this. And then I had to exit with that doctor, and because I just felt like we didn't have the same approach to things. And I've since found an amazing doctor, and I just really love her. She is always very mindful about my diet and my goals, and she'll give me lots of options, and she'll say, I know you're raw, you eat very clean, and here's some options, like we could do this, but I know that's not the path that you'd like to go. So I really appreciate the fact that she kind of meets me where I am and gives me options so that I can make my decision of what's best for me. Because my experience with a lot of doctors, I had one other doctor that was the same way, and then he moved his family, which I was really sad to see him go, because he's the one that really kind of helped me on my journey and exploration of just changing diet to vegetarian and just exploring different options. But it really is amazing how food can be life-changing. I mean, you just think, oh, we need to eat to sustain ourselves, but it really can be so impactful on your health for the negative or the very positive. And I loved it. I jumped right in and just really explored it. I remember talking with my doctor, and she was like, you are not the norm. Most people don't just say, okay, I'm done with that, I'm not going to do that anymore. And I wish more people would be open to just try it, even if it's just for a week. Just try it. And like my daughter now, she'll say, oh my gosh, I don't miss any of that. And it is a processed food, but she has discovered Diet cheese that fills that void for her. But she got to the point where dairy just was not agreeing with her, and that was kind of her last thing, like it was mine, where it was just really, really hard to kind of break that cycle. And then once you do, it's just not appealing. And it's sort of like once I went raw, my daughter was like, Mom, just try this. And I tried it, and it was like, I just wanted to spit it out. It was just not good tasting anymore. But one of the things I found too, like when I am eating 100% raw, no cooked food, it's like my energy is so high. And when like I would have steamed vegetables, because broccoli, cauliflower, those I usually have to have steamed just for digestive reasons. And it's like I would feel tired. And I was talking with a friend who's raw. She was like, your body is so used to not having to work hard to just process everything. And it's your body like slowing down, and that's what's making you tired. And it's so amazing. And after I had to have my gallbladder out, which was part of this whole trigger. So I had gallstones so bad. And I had if I had known now, I probably wouldn't have had it removed because I would know that I could reverse it. But my surgeon, his wife was a nutritionist, and she was very into really eating clean, really easing back in and focusing on not like this huge bunch of things where your body is trying to digest and they digest at different rates, which kind of got me looking at food combining and how to combine your foods for ease of digestion. And all of that has really been a huge game changer too. It's like the raw, the food combining, all of these things were just all coming together and making sense. And I think the food combining thing is so important no matter what kind of diet you eat. And I think it kind of leads you into eating better as well. But the food combining, I mean, who would have thought, most standard American diet is like the worst food combining you could actually ever do. And then you wonder why people have heartburn and all this, side effects from eating. And it's just, you get to the point where you're like, I don't want to feel bad because of what I've eaten. And when you do that sidestep and you eat something and you're like, oh, it's not as good as you remembered. And it's like, it's not worth that horrible feeling that you have after.
Totally. I agree completely. I think that the principle of food combining and implementing that in my life was a huge game changer. And definitely what you said about just easing digestion and allowing that process to be easy so that we can feel energized and fueled to teach or to run or whatever it is that we want to do. And if anyone who's listening has no idea what we're talking about food combining, you can go to healthydynamiclife.com and get a free copy of my food combining chart, or just send either one of us a message and we can point you to some resources as well. Because I think that in addition to consuming raw fruits and vegetables, combining them well is going to up-level anyone's health to be happier and easier, which I think is something that we all really want.
Yes, definitely.
For bringing that up. And then another thing I wanted to touch upon, Janice, was the cheese and the dairy, because I was a cheese addict myself. Like there would be, when I was on a standard American diet or SAD as well, there'd be a bowl of beautiful fruit of apples and bananas, and I would walk right past it as it's ripening and eventually getting old, and I would get my block of cheese and crackers or chips or just shred it and eat it plain. And it's so crazy how addictive this, to me now, it's like a blob of fat. Like it's really plasticky and unappetizing. But like, or what kind of advice would you share with people that also feel really addicted to cheese or can't imagine life without cheese or any kind of dairy for that matter, what would be some steps or pieces of advice that you would share?
So, particularly with my daughter, she's very picky. And dairy started bothering her. And when she was little, I kind of cheated a little and I was like, let's have some frozen yogurt. And that was kind of ice cream to her. It's still not the best choice because it's dairy, but just kind of weaning her off of that like super high fat. And I'll tell you, she prefers, like, she'll have a Ben and Jerry's or this Alden's ice cream that she has, but it's all plant-based. And I feel like if people are really craving that dairy and they just can't get off of it, but it may not be making them feel great, there are some really great plant-based options. And just throwing frozen fruit in a Vitamix or a food processor. I tend to like my food processor a little bit more for that because I feel like it's a little easier on the machine than my Vitamix when it's like struggling. Like I don't like to add a lot of like butter or coconut milk or whatever in there because I feel like it kind of dilutes it and I like it like really frozen. So, bananas, she loves Dole Whip. So, we'll do the frozen pineapple, but just, I guess part of it is, what is it about dairy that you love? Is it kind of that indulgence kind of thing? Which I feel like it's equally satisfying to have a bowl of frozen banana ice cream. Cheese has been hard for her, and like the plant-based cheese, the Daya brand, I remember the first time I had Daya and I was like, I think I'm gonna Daya from it. It was just terrible. But I was also, it was hard transition off of cheese, but Daya has come a long way and my daughter loves it. Like she's like, Mom, it tastes just like cheese, and she hasn't been off real cheese that long. So that's been a game changer transition for her, but it's also something that she's not like cheese. I want to eat cheese all the time. So having that plant-based product, it really, even though it's processed, but it is a nice transition to kind of wean you off of it because I don't feel like it's as addictive, if you will. And the plant-based products have come so far. I mean, they're really amazing. A friend of mine she called me, and she is not vegan, vegetarian, anything. She eats kind of a standard American diet. And she was like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm at the store. I want to get like plant-based ice cream. And I was like, yay. She was like, what should I get? So I gave her some, ideas. And I mean, there so many great products where people can make better choices where you don't feel like you're giving up that indulgence, but it's a healthier option. And as you make healthier options, then you just kind of segue into less processed foods and just kind of keep your journey going. So
absolutely. Thank you so much for that great advice. And I agree with you 100%. The number of products available that are plant-based and vegan is like 100-fold from 10 years ago. We're really so lucky and blessed to be living in a time where we can substitute animal-based products for sustainable, healthy, plant-based products that are, like you said, equally as delicious, if not even more delicious.
mm-hmm.
And even though they're processed, they could be really helpful for someone who is choosing to transition to a more healthy diet. So that was.
I think the transition is really hard for people because they feel like they're so restricted where, oh, I can't eat that anymore. And they try and just go from night to day and then it's gone. But that transition period, I think, is really important to not feel like you're deprived. still feel like you have choices, and it's still your choice. Whatever you want to put in your mouth is what you wear. So, and how it impacts you. But I feel like for most people, they need that transition. And then if they can make that transition in a really sustainable way, then it's something that they'll be excited about and want to continue, experimenting with new types of foods and that maybe they haven't tried before.
Absolutely. I love that you brought that up about finding things that excite you or that are enjoyable, because that's really what makes this journey a happy and a positive one. I completely agree. If I were to feel restricted or deprived, I wouldn't succeed. I would fail because I didn't like it. But as long as I focused on what I do like, it's so much more enjoyable and easier, whether it's the diet cheese or the plant-based ice cream or a veggie burger. Like, find something that you really like and stick with that for a while until you find something else that you like. Maybe it's a healthier choice. So it was really awesome.
Yeah. And for me, like, I used to rely on coffee and tea and all of that, and just that caffeine boost. And I started having heart palpitations because I got away from drinking tea. And tea was kind of my go-to. And I probably hadn't had like an iced tea or anything because I was just transitioning away from all of that in about a year. And I was with one of my colleagues. We were hosting this freshman dinner at her house. And when it was all over, we were just sitting talking with her husband. And I was drinking iced tea, no sugar, just straight iced tea. And I had this weird sensation in my chest. And all of a sudden, it was like someone pulled the shade down and it just went black. And my cardiologist said I passed out, but I was like, but I didn't like fall down. You think people fainting. So it really, really scared me. And that's part of the trigger why I went to raw food too. And, I went in, had all of these tests. And, when I was talking through everything with him, it was funny because he said, I think you just figured out what is the problem. And it was caffeine. I had been so reliant on caffeine, and then I went away from caffeine. And so when I introduced it back into my system, it was just too much. And I think that, I know people love their coffee, and there's options, and even herbal options that kind of have a coffee kind of flavor. But it's just, I work out every day. Today is actually day 1411. My workout streak, work out 30 minutes every day. And I love to do it in the morning. It's kind of like my coffee in a workout form. So just being energized and looking at, a little maca in a smoothie in the morning is energizing if you need that extra boost. But I think caffeine is one of the things that it is addictive, and it's really hard. It's kind of like sugar and fat and all of that, and trying to find that balance and how to just really transition away from the reliance on it. Because once you transition off, like, I look at some of my friends and I can't imagine being so reliant on caffeine. And even my daughter, she'll go to her dad's and she was drinking lots of Coke and all of that. And part of me is like, have you ever seen the nail being dissolved in Coke? Like, what is it doing in your body? And I started buying some sparkling water for her. And that is all she drinks now. It was like a really beautiful way to transition off of a sugary soda. And I just started with the lemon and the lime because she loved Sprite. And there really wasn't a replacement for Coke. And now, like, she had a little bit of a Coke last week, and she was like, Mom, it was so gross. Like, her taste buds had changed so much. And I've been listening to Dr. How Not to Die, and now his How Not to Diet. He always has great information. And it was a great reminder that your taste buds are renewed every 10 days. And it's like if people could just transition, get past that 10-day period, your taste buds, it does change. And you're not as reliant on kind of that sugar, fat, salt. And they're really hard. They're really hard to get past, but once you do, there's so many salty natural foods, tomatoes, you've got celery, which has that natural seaweeds. So it's kind of a nice replacement, but when you tell them that, they're like, oh, sure, I'll have my salty chips, please. But it really does help change your taste, and it's just kind of getting past that period.
Absolutely. That's so helpful. And thinking, this doesn't have to be a whole life thing. That can feel so daunting. Any aspect of, I need to work out every day for the rest of my life or else I fail. Like, that's such a burden to carry. But if I can just get through the next 10 days, if I can just make it through today, it really lifts that extra weight, and focusing on things that are enjoyable, like you mentioned earlier, are really, really great tips. And I really appreciate you sharing those, Janace.
Yeah. Well, and the working out thing, I've always worked out just my whole life, but I just felt like I need to focus, and 25 days, I'm going to work out every day for 25 days, which was very doable, very achievable goal. And then I thought, I'm going to do it for 25 more days. So that was kind of my 25-day goal increment. And now I just work out, and every once in a while I'll go in, how many days has that been? But just doing that for yourself, for me, I'm so busy that if I do it in the evening, it's too energizing for me and I can't sleep. And life takes over. It's like you can have best laid plans, and then before you know it, it's 10 o'clock and there's your excuse. It's time for bed. But for me, I love to wake up. I work out first thing in the morning, and it really paves my whole day. It energizes me. And that's kind of my time where I can just completely devote it to me. And I feel like life takes over, and we don't always do that. But it's like, it's my way to put me first every day, get my workout in, and then everybody can have me for the rest of the day.
That's awesome. And what do you choose to do during your me workout time? Is it the same? Do you mix it up? Do you have a plan? How do you navigate that?
So I used to do the elliptical religiously every day, and I got to the point where I attribute it probably to my cheerleading days for so long, but my hips started rotating out a little bit, and I started seeing a chiropractor, and she was just like, the motion on the elliptical, because I'd get to the point where some days I would get on and it was painful. And so she was like, I would try some different things. So I do a lot of rebounding, which is super gentle, and it's really fun. I mean, you can watch a Netflix show, you can listen to a podcast, you can listen to music and just dance on it. I'm not a runner. I'd love to be able to run, but it's just, I'll do like a walk, I'll jog a little, walk, jog a little. I replaced my elliptical with a treadmill, so there's no excuse. There's always, doesn't matter if it's raining or I'll walk when it's beautiful outside, but yoga is always so great, especially I feel like when you work out a lot, you forget that stretching is so critically important to just kind of find that balance. And I used to do a lot of like HIIT training, but it's so hard on my knees. So I try and find, if I'm still doing that, I'll do some modifications of it, but I really just work out at home. And part of that spurred from when I had my daughter. It was just too hard to juggle her and getting her to the gym and all of that. And I just felt like there was so much lost time. And I know people think, oh, I have to work out, I have to go to a gym. All you need is yourself, maybe a yoga mat if you need a little cushion. But there's so much we can do at home, jumping jacks and lunges and planks, and it really doesn't have to cost you anything. A jump rope, oh my gosh, a jump rope is like, you think, oh, as a kid, you could jump rope for hours. And then as an adult, you're like, this is such an amazing workout. And it's been 2 minutes. So I feel like people have so many barriers to working out because they feel like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so hard. And like, I follow Yoga with Adriene on YouTube. She's amazing. And I love that she's like, do what feels good. And here's some modifications. And it's not that yoga class that feels like you're not holding your posture right and it has to be perfect. And it's so accessible. And that's what I love about it. You can roll out of bed. You're not losing any time. You just work out and then get on with the day. And for me, that's worked really well. I know some people like the motivation of being at the gym and that whole part of it. But for me, I'm so busy that I need to not take that time to just be getting ready and then going to the gym, showering, going to the gym, and then showering when you come back. Like, I can just roll out of bed, get my stuff on, brush my teeth, and work out, and get on with my day. So it doesn't have to be such an exhausting thing. And even 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day is just, it's something that everybody needs to do for themselves, even if it's just taking a walk and just hearing the birds and feeling the sun and just getting outside is so important. And I see your adventures all the time and you're always outside, and it's just so inspiring because we need to do that more, is get outside and just have fun.
Thank you for saying that. I definitely agree. I love being outside, going for a walk, because I'm achieving so many things at the same time, getting fresh air, getting sunshine to make vitamin D, moving the body, moving the fascia. But even if someone, for example, is homebound and they aren't able to go outside, we can open the window and then move in a chair. And I love that you mentioned YouTube. There are so many free resources available to even take a full-length class, whether it's yoga, chair yoga, a dance HIIT class, and we're just in an abundance of information and resources. So again, it's super lucky to be living in this time, and it's a perfect time to start putting our health as our number one priority, because when we do that, everything else improves. Our relationships, our career, our finances, everything trickles into its perfect puzzle piece.
Yes, it really does. And just striving to just be better, do better, and transitioning from a high fat raw diet to a lower fat, I think that was one of the triggers for me. I learned about Tanny Raw and kind of her low fat and raw food romance, and just really trying to get to a better place. And the fat is definitely, you need some of that to be sustaining, just so you're not hungry all the time. But I think that a lot of raw food sometimes does get to be really high fat, and you just have to really constantly adjust and see what works for you. 80-10-10. Some people, that's great. Some like a lower fat, some a little higher fat, but you just kind of find your way with all of that. And I think the most important part is just finding what works for you, that formula, because I think some people are so formulaic and you're doing it wrong and you can't have this and you shouldn't eat that. But people just need to find what works for them and what motivates them to just make healthy choices, so that it doesn't have to be so restrictive. It doesn't have to be restrictive, and you find what makes you feel good, and what makes you feel good one year it might be like, oh yeah, I'm done with that, I don't need that transition food anymore. But I think that's the most important thing, is just find what makes you feel good and stick with it. The evolution is amazing. Slow, fast, whichever route you want to take.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that. There's no perfect path that everyone needs to take to achieve their optimum health and wellness. We all can go this way, that way, and still end up feeling great. So find what you enjoy, find what you look forward to, find what makes you feel good and energized, and it will keep leveling up. So it's just been like so amazing having you share all of your wisdom and your advice and your story, Janice. I really, really appreciate all of your honesty and the pouring of your heart today.
Well, thank you so much. It's been great to be here and get to know you a little bit more as well. We're all such a great, loving community, and just want to share the knowledge and spread the health.
I love that. Hashtag spread the health. I'm going to use that. And before we sign off today, Janice, do you have any last words of wisdom or something that you would like to share before we jump off?
I think kind of what I just said is, it's a journey and it can be hard for anyone. And there's so much noise about, oh, try this diet, take this pill, buy this water and drink it and you'll lose all of this. And we get so kind of clouded by all of that, where we're just like, okay, that's the trick. That's the one that's going to work for me. And I feel like it's just, even if it's starting with a smoothie a day, you pick what you want. If it's one, lettuce leaf or whatever you put in there, just start somewhere. And it doesn't have to be scary. And like, you can follow a recipe, but you know what you love to eat. So if you love strawberries and mint, then throw it in a smoothie. Just think about, what do I love to eat? And, some people I know, they're like, oh, you eat vegan? Oh, that's so gross. I'm like, eating real food, like fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, like, how is that gross? And I think it's just because they don't understand what it is. And when they see what you're doing, people get curious. Like, they see results. They see, like, I'm 51, and people are like, wow, you're 51? And, I do have good genes. I feel like I attribute that to good genes. But healthy diet and lifestyle, and just moving, even if it's just 10 minutes a day, even if it's just like running up the stairs, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, just really, this is what you get. This is your place you live. And we spend so much time like making our homes beautiful and all of that, and spending all this money on that. But it's like, the cost of your own health is so important, and this is where we live. So you need to always make sure that you're taking care of you and making best choices. And even if it's just one change that you make a month, and then it's a week, and then, before you know it, you're making really good choices for yourself. And there's so much. You don't have to read a book anymore. You can get Audible and it will read it to you. You can get so many great snippets on Instagram and YouTube, and there's so many amazing resources that makes it really easy to get information. You do have to filter information, because there's a lot of misinformation out there too. But I think understanding some of that misinformation, as well as here's the real information, I think is important too, because there's always something that, oh, this fruit or vegetable, you shouldn't eat it anymore. Okay, well, if that's all you lived on, then maybe that's not a good choice. You need to mix it up. But, everything in moderation, and everything, if you're eating healthy, your body will tell you, like, hey, we've eaten broccoli for 3 months now. We need to change it up. But I've learned that from my daughter. She'll get hooked on one thing. And I'm like, okay, how about some cauliflower tonight, or peas or carrots? And she's like, no, I just want broccoli. I just want broccoli. And 6 months of broccoli. And then she doesn't want broccoli for another 6 months. So, it's really important that obviously we crave things, and she was really craving broccoli and, nutrients and things that were in it. But just, I think a little bit of education can go a long way. And we're always learning. Always learning. There's always something new to take in, and so it's pretty amazing. It's been an amazing journey, and I just hope that everyone finds their passion with food and health, and it can be really easy, and it can be just one choice at a time. Change your life.
Yes, we all have the power within ourselves to change our life. And Janice, I had no idea you were in your 50s. You look fabulous. If you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, find this video on YouTube. She's glowing. And not to toot my own horn or anything, but today is my 30th birthday, and I just feel flattered when people say, how old are you? You look like you could still be in high school. And it's just all attributed to the diet and maybe some genes. Yeah. I hear you on that. But, we can reverse aging with raw, clean food. So
yes. Well, happy birthday. That's so exciting.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm going to celebrate with some watermelon and my favorite fruit. So thank you again so much, Janice. It's been such a pleasure listening to you. So I really appreciate your time.
Yes. Great to be here.
Yay. And thank you to all who have chosen to listen. I hope that you have received some value or something that you can take away and implement, or share the message with somebody else that you love, and keep raising everybody's health, and so that we can win-win in this world. So if you would like to, actually, please go on Instagram. If you have Instagram, find Janice raw4, the health of it, all one word, no punctuation. Give her a follow. She's got beautiful photos, so much good content, and it's just going to be so lovely to stay in touch with her. And if you'd like to follow me, please at Healthy Dynamic Life, all one word. And it's my pleasure to answer any questions you have via Messenger on there. So thank you all again, and wishing you a happy, healthy, and dynamic day. Bye.
Bye.